Dr. Jonathan Tripp, as promised, joining us in studio this morning for Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley answering the telephones at 736-0300. And, of course, Tripp Family Medicine located on Fillmore Street directly across from the main post office right here in Twin Falls. Means he's got plenty of parking. So
Yeah, there you go. We have several office complexes you could use, but we try to leave the spots near the office open. In fact, I park about the farthest away of any of the employees.
Good exercise. So
So
you get your
yep,
walking in.
exactly. And I'm my arm is naked. I just got into the Fitbit craze, so I'm already missing steps. But
Oh, you
so
brought a guest along. Speaking of getting some exercise.
yeah, I have Brian Wright from Wright Physical Therapy, and he's going to talk with us about how to keep from getting injured, especially as we have springtime activities increasing, and we'd love to see people do something physically so that it improves their health. And if you're already doing something, how to take it to the next level without being set back by injuries.
I was going to say, I mean, the one thing I've noticed just in the last few days, I do see people out bicycling as it is, but since we've been into the 50-degree temperatures, I've seen a lot more bicycling going on. Now, a lot of those people are likely in great shape. But if you haven't, I learned this back in 2007. I hadn't been on a bicycle since like 1979. And after doing it for a couple of weeks, my knees were so sore I could barely walk. And it got better. I mean, I eventually got better. It was the muscles just above my knees that weren't used to all the to the action. But I was about ready to throw in the towel at the time, thinking that it was probably a joint problem instead of a muscle problem.
Well, and you probably started out with a longer ride than you probably should have.
Right.
I find that, you get out, you're feeling pretty good, especially on the first day, and it's beautiful outside, and you think, well, I'm just going to go a little farther, and then you get farther down the road, and you got to come all the way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, too much is part of the issue. When we start out, we go kind of gung ho. We forget, that there's been 20 years between those bike rides, and now it's time to go a little slower than we would have 20 years ago. So, a lot of our listeners know what I'm talking about, and others just made it to 35 and still think they're 18, and are starting to learn those lessons that too much all at once, brings about a setback and often a true injury. So I'm going to have Brian talk to us about the rule of twos, which will fit perfectly into our beginning here.
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. And it is an exciting time where you've been kind of stoved up in South Central Idaho where it snows and it's time to get out. It's exciting. And that excitement can cause some problems, as we talked about, which is I got to get out and make up for this lost time. And the rule of twos applies to everybody, whether fit, medium fit, or I haven't done stuff in years. The rule of twos says basically don't do too much, too often, too quickly. Just think about that for a second. Too much, what does that mean? Well, hey, I want to get on the bike and I do too much of bike riding, or I do something too often. For example, I want to work out, so I go to the gym, or maybe I go rock climbing. Well, maybe I shouldn't do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 days or 2 times a day. That's maybe an extreme example, but it gets the point across that too often can be a problem as well. And then too soon just means, hey, if you're able to do a 5 mile bike ride right now, do a 5 mile bike ride as opposed to, I really need to get ready for that triathlon. So I'm going to do my 10
That's
mile
right.
bike ride now because I'm so nervous I won't be ready. So I better start really pushing myself. There is nothing wrong with pushing yourself, but you just got to know how much to push yourself. Most of the time when I talk about injury prevention, it feels like what I'm recommending is let's put a bubble around you and let you stay far away from any activity at all. And the truth of the matter is, if you apply a good load to your body, it will adapt appropriately. In our
That's
in
right.
our in our world, we call it minimum effective dose. Minimum effective dose is kind of a big, hairy word that just means there has to be enough to get the body to change for sure. But if you haven't exercised in a while, or you're just starting out on a program, that minimum effective dose is going to be very small.
Yep.
And then the recommendation on top of that is just make incremental changes. There's no reason to go out and try and become at day one what you want to be at day seven. Go from day one to day two to day three. And the best way to do that, I think, is just proper planning.
Yeah, I'll give an example. I have a little back exercise I teach to people that have had, back injuries that are not bulging disc, but just musculoskeletal muscle type injuries. And I'll tell them, what I want you to do is 20 reps of this particular back exercise morning and night. But to begin with, I want you to do 10 and wait till the next day and see how your back feels. Because if it's sore, I don't want you to do 20 twice a day.
Hmm.
So we really do have to take it baby steps to begin with to keep out of trouble, even though, the weather's perfect. And it's a lot of fun to try different things. I have to blame my wife for getting me into a variety of different types of exercise. I traditionally did running or weightlifting, but she's gotten me into some I'll call them high intensity, but still basic routine dance type videos. I've gotten involved in yoga. In fact, a lot of people know the P90X series that lots of people got injured on. But I got introduced to yoga with that series, and I found out yoga is a tough
I've heard
activity,
that.
and yet its purpose is to increase your flexibility and strengthen you without sudden movements that can set you up for injury. So that's a good choice for a lot of people.
We got more coming up. We're talking about exercise and maybe starting slowly. Otherwise, you'd be a little bit discouraged if you woke up in some pain. We've got more details coming up. Tripp Family Medicine, better health with Tripp Family Medicine, right here on KLIX. It's 840 and it's 44. Better health with Tripp Family Medicine this morning, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 44. We're coming up on 844. We've got a couple of guests in the studio with us today. First of all, Dr. Jonathan Tripp, the namesake, of course, of Tripp Family Medicine. And then Brian, and it's Wright, not White, right?
Yeah,
Right.
It's,
Yep.
it's actually Dr. Brian White. He's a doctor of physical therapy.
Ooh.
So we got
so-
two doctors in the house.
See, all of the intellectual part of the studio is on the other side this morning. Yeah, we were talking off air just about activity versus exercise. And Brian, you mentioned that you have you work at a standing desk. I remember some years ago seeing a documentary at the Pentagon where when Donald Rumsfeld was still the Secretary of Defense, he worked at a standing desk and he was saying, "Oh, I've done this for years,"
Right.
and he had done it all the way back since he was a member of Congress. Of course, the guy's 90 years old or so now, and maybe there's a reason he's 90 years old because little details like that can help a great deal.
Absolutely. You mentioned intellectual on this side, but I'm actually pretty dumb because it took me 3 to 4 years after I knew I should have a standing desk to finally invest in one. And that's not uncommon for all of us. We kind of drag our feet to what we know we should do, and that's what we do. But this desk I bought this year it's called a Very Desk, but you can adjust it to standing or you can adjust it to sitting, which is really cool because sometimes your feet get sore and it's good for you to sit sometimes, and sometimes it's good for you to stand. But the research is compelling about really when it comes to fitness, it's more than just physical exercise. And not to overwhelm everybody out there listening, but there's 4 basic pillars to that. And really what they are is rest. We need appropriate rest. Nutrition. So what we eat is important. Physical exercise and physical activity. And just to highlight those last two, physical exercise is an actual design program that we do. Maybe bike riding for half an hour, maybe weightlifting, maybe those types of things. And physical activity would be things that we consider walking from the car to the grocery store, walking upstairs, maybe gardening, those types of things that we do every day. So many times we overlook physical activity. Not to bore everybody out there, but physical activity can really save your life if you do more of it during the day. So if you sit for 2 hours at a time, that can be dangerous, especially if you're sitting for 2 hours over and over and over again, even if you have a great exercise program. Lots of research out there really highlighting the fact that great that you're exercising, wonderful, kudos to you, because a lot of people aren't and they should be. But physical activity cannot be slighted in that whole process. So that's why I finally bought a standing desk. My back feels better, my feet feel better, my body feels better. It's good
Yeah.
stuff.
In fact, the way I would say it is all of your activity counts. I would be mainly at a sitting situation in my pre-doctor profession, which was accounting. And so I would sit all day for, 10, 12 hours a day. And then I would do a workout routine and couldn't figure out why I couldn't lose weight because, I'm doing a pretty serious 45-minute a day workout routine. But, what I wasn't taking into account was I wasn't doing anything else the whole rest of the day except for actually walking to the car. The other thing is, I would tell the over 30 crowd, if you want to lose weight, you got to pay attention to calories because when you're 18 to 25, you just play a couple more games of basketball and you drop anything. That's not so true as you get a little older. So we do have to pay attention to what we're eating. And the reason why we stress the activity is because it helps keep you going, keep you moving, but it also helps lose that weight that causes, or makes diabetes show up, hypertension show up, heart disease. We talk about cholesterol. These are things I deal with over and over and over every day. And if I had my way, I wouldn't give any pills. I would say, listen, let's drop 5% of your weight. You weigh 250 pounds. Okay, figure that out. That's, we got to lose about 12, 15 pounds. And it'll make a dent, a big dent in your health.
I saw that with a deacon at church some years ago. He dropped about 100 pounds, and then all of a sudden he didn't need the prescriptions any longer.
Yeah, well, and you don't need 100 pounds to lose some prescriptions. I love to tell patients, you know what, if we do this, I will immediately take away medicines, as soon as we can. So that's kind of a fun moment when I have somebody that has success and I take away their blood pressure medicine or I take away their diabetes medicine. That's awesome stuff.
We have a telephone caller with us. It's 848. Of course, you're listening to Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on KLIX. And caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the bicycling thing and your knee issue, your muscle issue, Bill. Make sure you get your seat height adjusted properly. That's a really, really important thing for knee health when you're bicycling.
Very true. In fact, I went to the bicycle shop and had the guy do all of the adjustments with me and got that all set. And within 8 months, I was riding my bicycle from the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay to Washington. So, but it took a long time to get there. Let me put it that way. It wasn't an overnight success.
That's great. No, that's great advice. And a lot of that is the reason to, shall we say, get an expert, hire a pro, whether you're looking for exercise routine instruction and have a certified trainer, that's often a good choice. Right Physical Therapy has a program they call Athlete, and that's another good example of programs with expertise so that you aren't doing things that cause you damage. I do want to bring up one thing that goes along with that, and as you start an exercise program and doing anything, try to identify where your weaknesses are. And sometimes it's not a bad joint, it's a weak area of the muscles, and that may be around a particular joint. I thought as a young man I had bad knees, and what I learned later in medical school was, no, I had weak muscles around my knees. I had great knees. In fact, I won't tell you how old I am, but most people my age have bad knees from running, and I ran quite a bit. I don't have sore knees, but I believed I had bad knees as a young man because they were weak. So finding your weaknesses, getting some help to strengthen them, and identifying correct ways to keep yourself out of trouble is a big deal, because nothing's worse than you're really gung-ho, you're doing really well, and then boom, you got this injury and you don't even hardly know what to do
And
next.
that's so well said because, we just got back from Anaheim with on a course on tendons of the knees and ankles and that kind of stuff. But the main take home was don't forget to look at hip strength, just as an example. So many people have weak ankles or weak knees and the muscle surrounding that, but there's something called the kinetic chain that has to do with the whole entire leg, right? And if you can strengthen an area that's weak in that kinetic chain, like the weak link in the chain,
Yep.
then you can really affect the entire chain strength. So,
So look
that's
at the
good stuff.
whole rather than just the individual spot that you
It's
think
so
is in
true.
trouble.
Yeah, it's very true.
We have another caller with us. Caller, you're on KLIX, Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm on my way to exercise class right now, and it's the CSI Over 60 and Getting Fit class. The class I attend is at the Recreation Center in Jerome, and I recommend that to anybody over 60 that can get into a class because it has helped me so much. I had a stroke in 2009 and 2 years of physical therapy, and my therapist told me that if I did that class, I wouldn't need physical therapy anymore. And it has helped tremendously. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. That's an excellent opportunity for me to talk about how to make a comeback from major injuries or major strokes, and that is doing this a little bit at a time and keep pushing forward. And all I can tell you is that keep moving is a great thing to consider. There's a lady who was 106 years old, met with the president and his wife, and during their encounter, she grabbed both of their hands and wanted to do a little jig. This is a 106-year-old lady motivating the president and his wife to actually move. And when she was asked about what she thought the cause of her longevity was, she says, I keep moving. And, that really speaks to things that we've learned over time in medicine. Arthritis, your natural tendency would be to say, if that joint hurts, don't move it. But what we found is the people that move, even joints that hurt, have less pain and are able to have a greater range of motion. So, Brian brought up a quote, motion is lotion, kind of to the joints.
She mentioned, the seniors doing this. And you mentioned yoga. I have a friend who took up yoga at 71 years of age and said it's the best he's felt in years. Difficult at first when you get started because you're so much is involved, but he says that now he just feels wonderful.
Because the flexibility improves.
Yeah. I all these years in school and whatnot, the take home that I got coming out, a very strong summary was that exercise and proper nutrition cure a lot of ailments. And we were talking about it yesterday in the clinic with a patient that even exercise 30 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous level that's safe for you can reduce dementia up to 60%. Now, for me, that's a big deal. I need as many brain cells functioning as I can possibly get. That's a compelling reason to exercise for the day. And that's one of the big things is do it for the day. I mean, to get your brain functioning at the level that makes you feel excited and happy about life. That's one huge payback.
And I think what people don't remember is when you do a little bit, like I'll give you an example, you walk down the street, walk down your lane, and you do that, even though, it's a little too early in the morning or you'd rather stay in bed. As you do that once or twice, all of a sudden it becomes self-motivating. I'll almost liken it to an addiction, and runners know about this because they'll get partway into their run and get a certain sense of what we talk about euphoria, and that is your brain produces endorphins, good feeling hormones as you exercise, and it reinforces, hey, we like doing this. And so if you do a little, you'll probably do more. And what we want to caution you is do a little more. Don't do a lot more all at once, and just keep building up. And part of the advice, what we're saying is act your age. If you're 30, it's different than if you're 60 or 80. So, we talk about weekend warriors. That's where a lot of injuries happen. They think they're back to a young age because they used to be able to play racquetball a certain way, or they used to, run this far. Don't start with where you used to be. Start with where you are.
See, now I remember being at a neighborhood picnic when I was about 8, 9 years old, and all of the dads decided to play football with us, a touch football game.
Yeah.
And the next morning, all the dads in the neighborhood were walking around as if somebody had
beat them up with a bat.
Yeah, they were in rough shape the next day.
That is so true. No, I've had the same consequences. You go out and you play softball because you got a co-ed game that's going at a picnic or something, and boy, I tell you what, your ribs are mighty sore from swinging that bat the next day.
Bowling is another one. I remember I hadn't bowled in years, and after bowling just 3 games with some friends, walking up the stairs the next 3 days was excruciating just because the plant foot, the hamstring area was just so tight after that because it wasn't used to all of that stretching.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and let me put in one other idea, and that is doing exercise with somebody else, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a neighbor, whether it's just going for a walk together, or you actually find an activity. Like I have one of my physician assistants likes to play racquetball. So he got us to go play racquetball a couple of weeks ago, and that reinstilled a little interest in me playing racquetball. I didn't die the first time, so I might do it again. And so doing exercise, just any activity with somebody else, promotes it between the group that's doing it together. So that's a great way. You get to share the experience. Maybe you get to talk a little bit. I think that's a great social as well as physical activity.
Before we wrap up, I know, Brian, you got something you wanted to add to that.
I was just going to say, yeah, if you're fighting an uphill battle with trying to get an exercise program starting yourself, that's because it is an uphill battle. There's research that reflects that, hey, there's a 50% less chance you're going to stick with it unless you have a friend. So I just wanted to reiterate what Dr. Tripp was saying there.
Can we get contact information for both your offices?
You betcha. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, so Right Physical Therapy, the main way to reach us is on our website at rightpt.com. RightPT as in physicaltherapy.com. And, our main office in Twin Falls, we have 6 locations, but you can reach us at 208-736-2574 that way as well.
And Doctor?
Yeah, Tripp Family Medicine, also a website, trippfamilymedicine.com. We are on Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine, and our telephone number is 933-4400.
I was going to say, by the way, with Brian, when you got Right PT, figure how many people, because it's a common name, and maybe running physical therapy or using just PT for something else, you got in there early with a domain name.
Yeah, not easy to find, but we nabbed it.
Again, I want to thank you both for joining us this morning. And just very quickly, too, we got about 40 seconds. Weightlifting, you referenced that earlier. That's another one. I have had a friend, he was the shot put champion at UMass, set all sorts of records, and he used to work with us, and we all went lifting one day after work, and everyone thought they wanted to keep up with him.
Ooh, no.
We had a guy blow out his shoulder trying to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and the benefits of weightlifting are so powerful for people of all ages, all genders, that if we do it correctly and we do it like the rule of twos, too much, too soon, too often, if you avoid those, you'll be good to go, and it'll benefit you greatly.
Want to thank you both for coming by.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
next week, we're going to talk about nutrition, natural ways to get better, and some complementary medicine. That'll be kind of a fun topic.
Complementary medicine, that's what thanks you when you go, right?
That's
So,
right.
Yes.
A lot of people know it as alternative medicine. So, yeah.
Don Hall joining us in a few minutes after news from the Twin Falls City Council. That's on the way. And, of course, I want to thank the doctors for joining us this morning for Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. It's 8:59. News is on the way from Fox in just a moment. And we have 46